Actually, okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm recording this conference because, well, actually, maybe one person can ask me for sharing this material. So our university has honor to have our two guests today. And the first one we're gonna have, the first part of the conference is going to be Dr. Harrison. And actually, I prefer him to present himself since he's like, well, it is a huge CV that he has. So I prefer him to begin like telling you who he is and everything related to his experience. But honestly speaking, he's one of the best lecturers we can have here in this part of the planet. I'm saying this because he is in Barcelona so in this moment. So thank you for joining us. I want you not only to enjoy through the process of his speech, but also to take the opportunity to interact with him. So thank you. Thank you. Doctor, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, I'm just getting up my screen set up.
Okay.
Which now seems to have disappeared. Right, so I'm hoping everybody can hear me okay. So my name is Dr. Stephen Harrison. The thing that we'll be talking about today that Professor Chaparro has asked me to talk about is marketing, but specifically digital marketing. The reason for this is why it sort of picked on me is that I'm something of a compulsive startup kind of person and started quite a lot of different businesses in different parts of the world. Also passed quite a bit of time in Colombia. So if anybody asks what I am, I usually say Anglo Rolo, which usually causes a bit of amusement amongst the Colombians because it doesn't normally an Englishman saying that. So anyway, we'll get into some of the details, what we're going to be talking about, a little bit about me. PhD in management, an MBA. Well, I've actually got 3 MBAs now, and a degree in mathematics. But my background is rather unusual. I'm a former naval officer, fighter pilot, and airline pilot, and then gone into business. So a strange background. And it also included a little stint of working in Colombia. But the things I was doing there, let's say, official secrets act. So can't really say too much about that. But I think my work was mentioned in series 2 of Narcos. Oh no, series 3. Series 3. When they said, why don't you just destroy the cocaine? And that was kind of what I was doing for a while. This is some of my experience. I've just put a few of the main ones up there, give you a broad outline. The reason for showing is this, that when we're talking about something along the lines of marketing, it's such a generic topic that it's not very specific to one particular field. So by showing you the kind of places and things that I've worked at, from everything from, well, SAP, which maybe a few of you have heard of, the software company, to Department of Trade and Industry and Airlines. So it gives me such a broad base of working different types of fields. As I said, I was a military pilot, so clearly not a good one, because this isn't where I'm supposed to be sitting. That's a little bit more of the kind of stuff I was doing, not actually hitting those, but trying to do that. So today we're going to be talking about strategy. So if we actually consider what does the word strategy mean, people tend to think, oh, it means a plan, but the origin of the word strategy actually comes from the word generalship, hence having a picture of some sort of antiquated generals sat around a table, which is not too far from what we're supposed to be doing. Now, I spent quite a long time in the military, and to achieve any particular goals, then yes, you have to prepare a strategy. And these days in business, we use quite a lot of military terms to sort of use these kind of terms to express what we're doing in business. And it's basically because a lot of these kind of plans and objectives started out in military terms before they were then transposed over to commercial uses, and strategy being one of them. I mean, here we can see with these generals that we'll assume they are around their battlefield, but the battlefield that we're talking of is basically the world of the consumer. Now, because we're going to be focusing a little bit on digital marketing, then obviously we're looking really at sort of the internet, where the internet is our battlefield. We do sort of talk about enemies and things like that, but normally that is, we have competition, let's say. Although we may not be trying to destroy or kill the competition, but maybe we're trying to get some benefits from it. And we also have things like where we form allies in business, and we do the same, obviously, in military circles. And these things have been copied in commercial circles as well. So generally gives you some idea of what is the definition of strategy: an action that managers take to obtain the organization's goals. Now, when we're talking about this in marketing terms, we're talking about sort of a long-term approach of what we're actually trying to achieve. Now, a lot of people sort of look at me now at my advancing age and think, oh, it's totally different now, especially with things of doing it online, where we're talking of digital strategy. Things have changed, but surprisingly, they haven't. And this isn't the case. Things have not really changed. Obviously, the actual technical side of the type of way that maybe we conduct certain things and get the information across, yes, that's changed from maybe going from TV, from printed documentation, door to door. That has changed. But the actual ideas of what we're doing for the actual marketing has not. In other words, the messages we're trying to get across to people about us, about our products, what it is we're doing, is the same. If we're looking at strategy and compare the difference between strategy and tactics, well, this is sort of outlined here. There's strategy, analysis of marketing opportunities, target marketing decisions, and a value proposition, rather than specific features or doing promotion and merchandising or prices. But even at the strategic level, we have to decide what it is that we're trying to do to appeal to our customers. And one of the things is that's the fundamental point in this is our target. And we usually say that we have a target market. And that again sounds a bit militaristic of what we're aiming for. Again, it all comes down to military stuff. But it's who are we actually aiming our products or services at? Now, has this method changed? Don't forget, in anything that we ever do, even if we're selling business to business, we're still effectively selling to a person. And we have to appeal to that person. It might be the CEO, it might be a marketing director, a purchasing manager, whatever, but it's still a person. And it's usually a person that has to explain the benefits to that person of why they should buy our product or our service. So it's still done on a person-to-person basis. Even if we're putting something out on a blog, we're trying to get a message across to an individual. We're trying to attract that individual, make him think that that is the kind of thing that that person would want. So if you think, why do consumers buy stuff in the first place? Think of all the reasons of why people would actually buy something. Skipping over here. Why do we buy? Look at this guy here with his Ferrari. Now, does everybody need a Ferrari? I mean, I'm sure we'd like one. What's the reason this guy has a Ferrari? And we know that these things are incredibly expensive. So this guy spent such a vast amount of money to get his Ferrari. Why? What is the purpose? Why do we buy these things? A vehicle like this is that it's a vehicle, it's a mode of transport. If you actually to break it down, what a Ferrari does, which is just a particular product, and we were selling this by what it does for us, it does more than just get us from A to B. And curiously enough, when you actually see these things, that when they are for sale secondhand, you find that people have done very few kilometers in them. They very rarely use them to actually drive. And they're not exactly practical for going to the supermarket and buying your stuff and collecting it and taking it home. So why do we buy things? What's behind our mentality? In other words, before we can even start to think about a strategy for marketing, we have to know the customer that we're going to appeal to and why that person would want to buy our stuff. Now, the reasons that we buy, if you kind of think of why we buy things, we understand that there are specific requirements, the main needs that we have. We know that we need food and shelter, etc. We understand that. But the same thing, we might need clothing. But do we need a t-shirt that's going to cost 120 euros? Probably not. So why are we buying these things? We're buying them maybe to show off, to impress people. We're buying maybe to impress someone that we're interested in. I'm not going to say what we're going to do, but the person that we're interested in, we're trying to impress them. We're trying to make ourselves feel better. We might be trying to look younger. We might be buying built-up shoes so that we look taller. And I know Arturo would understand that because I'm significantly shorter than Arturo. So why do we buy stuff? In other words, before we even start to go into a strategy, we have to understand what it is that we're selling. And it's more than just the actual product. Nobody buys products. People buy the benefits. What's the benefit to this young guy driving around in a Ferrari? Do you think people are going to stop and look at him, pay more attention to him, be impressed by him? Probably. And that's probably the reason why he has bought this. So why do people want to buy your products or services? You have to have, there's a thing in marketing called a USP, a unique selling proposition. In other words, what's special about yours? And it's not enough just to say, oh, ours has slightly more gigabytes, ours is slightly larger or smaller. That's not the point. What is the benefits for somebody to do that? For example, if you're selling a phone that has a better camera, and instead of having more megapixels or just advertising it has more megapixels, that's not enough. But if you can show it has Hollywood quality videos that you can produce, your own films, that is the benefit. You then become your own movie producer, your own director of your movie. That's what you're selling. In other words, it's kind of like you're selling the dream, what this thing is going to do for the customer. So the first thing, when we're looking at a strategy, whether it be online marketing or traditional marketing, what is it you're trying to get across to the consumer? What is it you're trying to do with them? And the other thing, one of the best forms of marketing that's generally considered is word of mouth, boca en boca. Why? Because we understand that if we get the information of some product, of what it's done for them, and that is someone we know, we trust, we respect, we will take that far more on board than someone who we don't know, some actor, some star. We do tend to believe stars or famous sports people, actors, because we kind of feel like we know them. If Tom Hanks is selling us something, we think, well, Tom Hanks is a nice guy, he's a serious guy. I trust Tom Hanks to sell us that. But at the end of the day, you should be aware that Tom Hanks is probably being paid a large amount of money to say those things about the product that he's selling. Whereas in the case of someone who you know personally, probably not. They're basing it on their personal experience. So the first thing is, before we even start anything, is what is the proposal that we have for our products or services to get these across to a consumer? What is it that the consumer is that they're interested in for them to buy our stuff, whatever it is? Now, there's two main types of marketing in the sense of we have outbound marketing and inbound marketing. Outbound means it's initiated by the company. So this might be something where we would post adverts somewhere. We would do publicity. Then inbound is consumer oriented. In other words, the consumer is looking for some information about this or the problem. So, for example, if you are selling some kind of great camera on your phone or just a camera on its own, be where somebody is talking about cameras and their requirements for them. That conversation is then initiated by the consumer. Therefore, you have to be where they are, not hoped that they will come to you out of the blue. So the first thing when we're looking at this is selecting what it is that they're after. So we've got to ask some questions. What is the purpose of the medium? In the terms of medium, we're talking about what methodology we're using to get the information across to the consumer. Now, it sounds strange. Is it to listen or to talk? Now, talking is what generally is done in sort of more traditional marketing, where we are forever telling people about our product. But to listen is to find out what the consumer wants in the first place. If somebody's looking for a particular product that does a specific thing, then you're able to answer them. Now, obviously, this is one of the things that certainly with social media, now things have changed compared to, say, traditional marketing. Traditional marketing was very one way. It was mostly the company, the firm that was selling the products. They were initiating everything. They were just telling you. They would put an advert on the TV, print something in a magazine or a newspaper, and it was one way. They would tell you. The problem is it was very limiting, because they didn't necessarily know what it is that the consumer wanted. In other words, we need to find out what the consumer wants. We do this by what we call market research. But market research isn't just a question of standing in the middle of a town centre asking questions of customers. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but if you're standing there with a questionnaire and people come up to you to ask you, oh, we're doing market research in a particular product, most people just shy away from it. People move out of the way. They don't want to respond. Or if they do respond, they may feel obliged to either not tell the truth or just give some fake answers to get you out of the way. And to be honest, I have been guilty of this as a consumer. Usually people stop me in the street here, especially in Barcelona, and we have a lot of people doing that. Sometimes it's to try and get money out of you. Other times it's kind of irritating, time consuming, and I'm a busy guy. I don't want that. So I usually, I do speak Spanish for the people, but in this case, I usually don't have that ability at that time. I usually find myself speaking German. So somebody asks me, ¿puede preguntarle algo? Entschuldigen Sie bitte, kein Verstehen Sie, ich bin ein Schweiz. So I pretend to be Swiss. And that usually does the trick, but it shows how or not very valuable is this method. So thanks to the online side, now it's totally different. We can talk to our customers and we can listen to them. So this is one of the things that we have to look at. What is the purpose of this? Is it to listen to our customers, find out what it is they want? Also, what is the persuasion element? What is it that's our argument that we're giving to them as to why they should buy our stuff? And who is the provider of the content, the information that we're giving out? Is it us that's giving out the content where we're writing information about us? Or is it the consumer asking for information and we're answering that? And then the last one, who is initiated or the provoker of the contact? Are they trying to contact us or are we trying to contact them? In most cases, we don't really have time for the consumers to contact the company. So we usually do things where we try and contact them. And then we get into a situation, is that the right thing to do? Is it even ethical? This is usually when we get these massive email lists. Now, email can be a very good method of marketing, certainly one thing that can be used, that it can be quite good, but the numbers required are huge. You may get a 1% response rate, which would mean that you would, for every 1,000 emails, you may get 10 who would actually listen to you. The other 990 probably won't even open your mail. And out of that, you may get 1% who will actually finish up buying your product of the 1% that have opened in the first place. So for every 10,000 emails, you may get one customer. May. And again, it depends on the kind of thing that you're selling. If you're selling something that's tens or hundreds of thousands of euros, that's not the way to go. You've got to find out who is your market. You've got to analyze them, find out where they are. What are they doing? In other words, what kind of things are they looking at? What kind of things are they watching? Where are they online so that you can be there? So you have to have these kind of things set up in the first place before you can sort of just start barging out or sending out vast emails or barging out into the marketplace trying to find customers. That's not the way to do it. You need a framework. What is it that you're trying to do? So if we have a look on here, we've got some ideas of what the kind of things are, what it is that you want to do, and where you should go. So we started out whether you should either listen or talk. So if it's listening, then as we said, that's market research. So you can go to these kind of tools that we have here. Obviously, Twitter and Facebook is a great place for using to try and find out what people think of your products, but also other things where we have general social chatter, the online buzz, things like that, where we can find out what people are saying, either about your field, your market, your product, your service. If it's to talk to people, in other words, you're trying to persuade them, maybe you have something that's come out that you feel is great and everybody should know about it, you want to persuade them. So with something like that, especially if it's to switch from another product that maybe they already have that's similar, you want to get them by saying, offer them special deals. Get this now, especially if they already know what it is. I did get stopped once where someone was trying to persuade me to buy beer. Now, I'm kind of a beer drinker, so they didn't have to do much persuasion. But by giving me some special offers, literally 2 for 1, that did it for me. So by doing that, giving you the offer, if that's the thing that will persuade you, that's where you should be, by giving these daily deals. Places like Groupon. Groupon is great because it's the kind of things that you would probably buy anyway, but they're pushing you a little just because of the deal to buy it right now and through them. If it's generally to offer arguments about something, in other words, advertise, well, we want to go consumer to consumer. So this is where we use things like TripAdvisor and Amazon. So each person is going direct to them. This is what we call electronic word of mouth. And if something can go viral, great. It then means people are talking about you and creating that buzz, this electronic word of mouth. Now, the thing is, when we're talking about word of mouth in the traditional sense, how many people do you talk to? And we'll have to go pre-COVID, where once upon a time, many years ago, we were allowed to go out of our houses and talk to other people and sit in places with lots of other people. So we had the opportunity of talking to 20, 30, 40 people maybe in a day. But thanks to electronic word of mouth, how many friends do you have on Facebook? Now, although I understand that they're not real friends, but the people that you know, I ask my students on a regular basis, and I have found that most people have easily over 1,000 friends on Facebook, or 1,000 contacts. In other words, they could actually discuss something or tell their small circle, and that would be 1,000 people, far more than the 20 in the past. And the thing is, though, with this, sounds good. The problem is you've got to have a pretty good product now, because generally speaking, if somebody had a bad experience with something, how many people are they going to tell? They're going to tell a lot more than if they had a good experience. Now, I've actually had this as an actual example. If I've been to a good restaurant, there are some really good restaurants here, I'll be honest, I've probably told 10, 15, 20 people. But if you go to a bad restaurant, especially if it's a restaurant that's expensive, how many people do you tell? Well, the answer is easy. Everybody. I must have told people about an expensive restaurant here in Barcelona where I had a very bad experience. I have probably told 2,000 people by now. In other words, this electronic word of mouth can also work against you. So you have to be very careful. I remember hearing a story about with traditional marketing, that when Aston Martin, one of my favorite brand of cars, was advertised a long time ago, they said it would do like 140 miles an hour. And there's no way that since then that anyone ever got the car to go that fast. So somebody from Top Gear asked someone who actually worked at the factory at the time, said, how did you make the car go so fast? And they said, we never did, we lied. And you could get away with that. You can't now. Why? Everybody has an opinion. If somebody has bought the vehicle and says, I've tried getting it to that speed, it won't do it. In other words, you've got to be very careful now with this. You cannot make these unsubstantiated claims. Why? People will find out. And if people find out, they will tell a lot of other people. And they have that now. People have a platform to talk. So if you're doing this, you've got to be very careful with how you advertise, because if you say something that's not quite right, trust me, thousands, if not millions of people could soon find out. Now, the next one, firm to consumers, to create and distribute content. So consumer initiated, this is the inbound marketing. Well, this is search engines. In other words, what's happening is people are going on to Google and they're looking for something. So in other words, they have started the actual contact in the first place. They have started to look for you, if you like. So you have to be there for them. You've got to be in a place where that consumer is going to come to you. In other words, they have started, they're looking for a particular thing. Now we've got Google, the main one, YouTube, which is actually the second biggest search engine after Google, and obviously things like Facebook. They're coming to you. Now, the firm initiated one, the outbound one, is just our standard advertising, the display ads, where a company would be displaying something to you. Now, I've got another, if I can find it. There she is. The Kardashians. Well, we'll just pick on one at this point. This is Khloe, so a real Kardashian, not a Jenner. We did say that about things where we have referrals coming from somebody that we either know or that we respect. Well, we now have this thing called influence marketing. Now, I'm mentioning this because it wasn't really covered on the other one. Now, who is initiating this? Well, first off, the company is initiating it in the sense of approaching someone who is an influencer, someone who has influence over people. Now, in most influence, this isn't really an influencer, Khloe Kardashian, because she's actually a well-known personality. It's not a case of she's buying something because she feels it's good and people should know about it. It's, we know, I think this girl can earn up to $500,000 per post. So if you think about it, if she's getting paid $500,000 to say, in this case, that she loves her hair with sugar bear hair, do we really believe her? Not so sure, no. But she has an influence. We can't say that she hasn't, because so many people are looking at her and listening to what she says. And it's not necessarily that it's just because, oh, well, she has the profile of the person that we're after selling to. Because, well, quite honestly, she's a very rich woman. And maybe the people that are being influenced by her aren't. But maybe they want to be like her. But do we really believe that if you take the sugar bear hair pills that you're going to look, well, as good as Khloe Kardashian? I don't know. I'll let you decide that. The thing that is worth noting, though, to mention this, and I feel it's important, with standard adverts, and I sort of touched on this briefly just now, with advertising, there are many regulations of what you're allowed to do and what you can't do, and what you can say and what you can't say. And obviously, those adverts are taken down and not even published in the first place if they're considered to be false or misrepresenting you, the product, etc. There are laws and regulations about it. So certain yogurts that claim to stop you having a heart attack, etc., in most countries, not allowed, regardless of where you're advertising. However, through influence marketing, through somebody like this, it doesn't consider an actual advert, which means, arguably, you could get away with saying things that aren't as truthful. In other words, it's less likely you would get something that is truthful coming from an influencer. And to put that in a more honest platform, if somebody asked you individually to say that we want you to sell a particular, say, I don't know, a brand of coffee, and that you thought wasn't very good, after all, Colombians have good quality coffee, how much, but somebody was prepared to pay you the equivalent of Professor Chaparro's salary 4 or 5 times over, just for which is a lot of money, just to make a post to say that this coffee is the best thing ever, when in fact you find it disgusting. Would you do that? And to be honest, most people, Professor Chaparro, of course not, but most people would. Because of the money. Therefore, there's no comeback. There's nothing to say that, oh, well, you weren't allowed to say that. You can do that. It's legal and misrepresentative of the product. So these are things to be aware of. But again, if you start saying this, where you're paying someone to say how it's great, someone else tries it and they have a platform, they may soon decide to say, well, I've tried it. Nobody's paying me to drink this, and this stuff is awful. So things to be careful of. Right, so we've gone through that. Types of digital marketing. We have pull and push. Well, pull is the idea is that you seek the marketing content. In other words, the person that's going to buy it looks for that information. They're trying to find the content. Rather than push is basically the marketer, the company, trying to push stuff onto you. This is very much in the, this has where things have changed, because typically in the sort of traditional method, advertising was done in that way. It was pushing stuff onto you all the time. You were bombarded by advertisements. It's still the case today. You drive down, if you drive down here going towards the airport, you are bamboozled by the amount of adverts on the highway on the way to the airport, offering you everything. In terms of products, including especially cars, for some reason. I suppose if you're in a car going to the airport, you might be in the market to buy one. But there's every possible type of car, maybe 20 or 30 adverts. So you're bombarded by them. Do they have any meaning to you afterwards? Probably not. I was watching a film the other week, and in between, during the film, the adverts came on. And after 20 minutes or so had gone by, I was still waiting for the movie to come back. There were actually 53 adverts for different products. In other words, they were pushing messages out to me. The problem is with that, there's so much. Therefore, when you actually see it, do you remember it? And I actually tried this as an example. After I'd seen 53 adverts, how many could I actually remember? And I'd gone to the effort of actually counting them. So I was paying some attention. It wasn't like I'd gone to the bathroom or made a cup of coffee. Yeah, but even so, I could remember 8 of actual product names. Therefore, the worth of that, not very much. And yet, especially television advertising is so expensive. Now, pull marketing is where somebody's looking for you or your product or your stuff, preferably in an area where they can feel that it's unbiased. In other words, what it is that you're supplying, how it's going to solve that particular problem, where people are saying great things about that. And that's where it's worth sort of having people, your ambassadors of your product, to be not selling your product, but demonstrating it online. Especially in things like YouTube videos is a really good example of that. Today, I think most people, if we ever need to do anything, we need a recipe, we need to know how to fix something or anything like that, some life hacks, how to make life easier. YouTube, we go to YouTube, everything's there. And we kind of believe the stuff that's on there as being factual. Therefore, that is pull. Someone is looking for that thing. If you have a product or service that is for that, that's the place to be. So actually looking at a strategy. So is a channel strategy means that it should, and we've got some ideas of what it should be doing. It should be informed by research. Now, when we say that, it must be informed by the information that you have gotten from your customers or potential customers. That is the marketplace that you're aiming at. Now, you have to understand that whatever it is that you're selling, advertising, highly likely you're going to have some competition, something that either does exactly the same thing or something very similar. So you should then be aware of what exactly is the difference between what your competition is offering and what you're offering. So the research is not just necessarily investigating the consumer, but also what the market has. In other words, your competitors. Now, I run a few business schools, so all the time I'm always checking out other schools and universities to see what they're offering and then compare that to what we have. And constantly asking our students to find out what's good about the school that you either went to or that you're at now with us, what's bad, what can we change, all the time getting this information, building up the information to help us construct our future strategy. Now, it should also be based on objectives. Remember the picture when people had the battle plan? They had an objective. They started out with, where do we want to be in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? 2 months, next week. Now, in some cases, if it's a new business, it might be to survive the first year. And that would mean a certain amount of sales that have to come in for you to be able to sustain the business for that time. That's the goal. You can change the goal as things move on. In fact, you should do. If you start out with a particular objective, for example, I know somebody here had an objective of 300 people on a webinar today. That's a great objective. But if you don't get 300, but you're only getting how many? I don't know, 290, then that's fine. You've done really well. But if it's down to 15, maybe we should start rethinking the strategy of getting people. So again, it has to have an objective, not just for now, but for what we're going to be doing in the future to change it. If you achieve the goal, move the goal up. If you don't, you either have to change something. So
we have 48 so far, Doc. 48, which is not bad. Well, it's more than I expect. Well, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Great. So now you know where you are, you see, for the next time. The next time, 48 is your starting point. So you've got some idea. So that's a good thing, but you should have that to start with. The other thing is how you can actually, whatever methodology you're using, how can you actually get the customers to come to you, to find you? Whatever form of particular channel that you're using, you need to get people from everywhere coming into that point. Now, this can be something, if we're using something along the lines of Google Ads is perhaps the most technically challenging, I would say. The actual part is quite easy to do an ad on Google. That's easy. But the problem with Google Ads, you've got to be so careful with every single word, because effectively what you are buying as a consumer for Google Ads, and now everybody in the world pretty much is a customer of Google, are words, the words that people are looking for. So suddenly every single word has to be carefully thought out. Are people looking for that word? Are they going to use that word? Are they looking for online studies? Are they looking for virtual class? Are they looking for whatever? You've got to be so careful with the wording. So you've got to be able to communicate exactly what it is, absolutely perfectly. The good thing is with something like Google, you're able to change it. If something doesn't work, you can very easily change it. You can skip something out and put something else in. But even so, when we're talking about rules and regulations, Google has a lot of rules and regulations. We're not allowed to say our school or university is the best in the world, because that's sort of unsubstantiated. Is it real? Is it true? You cannot use that. You can say, oh, we were ranked number 5 by a particular magazine in 1995. If that's true, you can say that because it's based on fact. But you cannot use these words that when they're not true. Just ask Donald Trump. He's been barred from a few social media. And that's not really, that's more of an influencer side, not actually on adverts. So here we have another way. Digital marketing strategy defines how organizations should hit our channel lead and sales targets. In other words, the amount of people that we're hoping to get, not everyone is going to turn into an actual sale. We're fine with that in some cases. It depends on the kind of business you have. Obviously, with a business where there isn't actually a sold product, so in the case of, well, I suppose Facebook or something like that, their goals were to get 1 million subscribers, and then 10 million, then 100 million, then 1 billion. But they were just subscribers. Obviously, it's much easier if you're offering something that's free. And that's a great idea. But then we have something called freemium. Like LinkedIn is a good example of freemium. They can get, and I think they have around about 100 million now, or perhaps more, 100 million subscribers. But if only 5% or even 1% are actually paying, like me, the 75 euros a month, that then is 1 million subscribers paying 75 euros a month. That's 75 million euros a month. But it's a specific target that you should have. Then these things aren't free. To get these things, even if you're selling something or giving something away, it costs money to do that. Now, this is a big problem with every organization, especially where you have a separate department, where you have like a marketing department. And usually the administration will come to them and sort of say, okay, we want you to get so many customers, so many clients, or so many sales. Your budget is, and they will give you a budget. It might be a very good budget, might be a terrible one. It's irrelevant. They should not be the ones giving the sales department or the marketing department a budget. Why? Because they don't know how much it costs. When we're doing this and planning our strategy on this, we not only need to know where we're going to get these people from, we need to know how much it's going to cost us to get each one. And obviously, it's based very much on that, the cost to get each customer. Now, we know some of the cheaper versions of advertising, like email marketing, is much cheaper than doing adverts on big websites that are very popular. They're going to charge a lot. Now, we were using, for example, an education platform for student recruitment. And we had to pay I think the initial amount we had to start out was 3,000 euros. The problem was that it was a big promise, but it actually worked out that we probably got 1 or 2 customers from there. Was it worth it? Well, just. But we found out, so that if we worked out that it was costing us 1,000 euros to get each customer there, could that have been better spent somewhere else? And it turns out, yes, if we'd have spent that extra 1,000 or 3,000 in that case for all 3, if we'd have spent 3,000 extra on Google Ads, we probably would have got 6 or 7 customers out of it. So we have to know how much these things are going to cost us, how much money it's going to cost us, so that when we're talking of doing the budget and the administration says, we want 100 customers a month, it should be the marketing department that tells them, okay, that will cost you 100,000 euros a month if it's 1,000 a customer, for example. But it shouldn't be them telling us how much we have to spend on it, because it doesn't work that way. If someone's going, well, we want a customer, we're only prepared to spend 100, you're not going to get any customers. Now, we've done this with some cheaper ads where we've had a lot of leads, and which most people, for some reason, thought that they could come to our school for free. And we're a private school. We charge money. And yet we had hundreds, if not thousands of leads saying, yes, I would love to come to your school, but we don't have any money. So what are they worth? Nothing. That was a complete and utter waste of money. I would rather spend 10 times as much and get people who actually have money and understand the fact that to get our product, they're going to have to give us some money. So we need to know how much it's costing us to get our customers. The conversion. So in other words, we start out with 1,000 people coming to us and saying, yes, I would like to study with you. And then only 10 of those out of 1,000 actually decide to have some money. And only 1 of those suddenly actually has the time and the money and the effort to do it today or this year or this term. So we start out with 1,000 and it goes all the way down from 1,000, then down to 100, down to 10, down to 1. So that's going to be our funnel. So we have to know this so that the next time we have our next strategy meeting of saying, this is what they've asked us to do, it's to double the number of students or customers. How much money are we going to need? We're going to need double, probably. So another one. The next one, communicate benefits of using the channel to enhance the brand. Because one of the things that we have to do is, especially now with so many new things coming out every single day, so many similar things coming out with a different brand, what separates one from the other? Now, to go back to sort of more conventional times or traditional times, certainly the case, and I think it happens in Colombia with certain things, but we had in the UK, the first vacuum cleaner that came over there was Hoover, the manufacturer's name, Hoover. And it became so popular that thereafter, every other vacuum cleaner was then referred to as a Hoover. So people were going into a store and saying, I want a Hoover, but I want an Electrolux Hoover, which doesn't kind of make sense really, but it became the name, the brand that everybody immediately thought of. If you can get to that, wonderful, but that's not usually the case. Very few companies can achieve that. We now know that the word Google just automatically means search engine. So people say, oh, have you been Googled? Instead of have you been searched for online, which I suppose is what we should say, but we don't. I've been Googled. You can Google me. It's now a verb to Google. Let us all Google. So if you can get to that, wonderful, but normally we can't. Therefore, we have to get the benefits across to people about using our particular brand so that people will buy ours brand rather than the competition. Now, sometimes you can do kind of sneaky things, and I've been known to do sneaky things, haven't I, Abdul? So, yes, he's nodding there. So, for example, using a similar name of a product or a company. Now, there was a case here, and I don't know if Arturo can remember when he was here in Barcelona, that Spar, the shop, is quite common, a small supermarket called Spar. And their logo is, if I can remember what Spar looks, it's a tree. It's a green tree, isn't it, in a circle with SPAR. And then one day I went to a Spar because it had a reputation, and it was only after I'd been going to the store for a couple of weeks, I actually noticed it wasn't a Spar, it was a star. And it had the green logo in the shape of a star, very similar to the tree, but with an extra couple of points in there. Same colors, but the Spar had been changed, the P to a T, star. In other words, they were trying to sort of piggyback on the brand well known, not actually illegal, but by doing that, someone had spent an awful lot of time, effort, and money to build up a brand name, and they had sort of come in on the back door and just sort of ridden on their coattails, as it were, taking over, because people thought of that automatically. We kind of see what we want to see. So getting your brand across could just be one of the most important things to do. If you can spend a lot of time and effort to get that people will then differentiate you from the competition. Right, the other one, it says prioritize audience target. So the problem, I spoke to an awful lot of people and was starting business, and I say, who is your target audience? And they have this thing that they say, our ideal customer is between 18 and 80, male or female, and lives anywhere on the planet. And say, okay, well, that's about 6 billion people. That isn't a target. That's everybody. That is not a target audience. You have to find out, because an 18-year-old living in Barcelona, let's say, 18-year-old male, is slightly different to a 55-year-old female living in Bucaramanga. Are they not? I don't know if Arturo would know that, probably. But let's say the difference between, say, you've got to separate who is the market for. Whether those people use them or not is not the point. You have to decide who you're going to advertise to. And you can't say, I'm going to advertise to everybody on the planet over 18 and under 95. You can't do that. You have to advertise to a particular group. Now, depending on the amount of money you have, you can add more groups. But you've got to think about your ideal customer, not every damn customer, your ideal one. If your ideal customer I mean, just look at this as an example. We mentioned about the Ferrari. We know that, let's say it should be for probably a young person, probably male, who wants to drive around in a Ferrari at 300 kilometers per hour. But we have a lot of Ferraris here, and I've seen the people that drive Ferraris here in Barcelona, and they're my age, and they're men, and who are successful, got money to buy a Ferrari, and they do not drive around at high speed even. The only other ones perhaps would be footballers, and we've seen how footballers, especially in Madrid and Barcelona, how they drive cars. I think it's Madrid players that are really bad drivers, isn't it, Arturo?
For example.
Yeah, the one in the tunnel with the Lamborghini or something. He only had it a week. So that's not a market, because there's only, I don't know how many players are in FC Madrid. How many players do they have?
25, I think.
25. That's not a market. That's just 25, young guys with a lot of testosterone. That's not a market. So the market for that car would be people between 50 and 60, probably, who probably at the end of their career with a lot of money to spend and time to be able to enjoy driving around, and with the money to pay someone to go and clean it every 2 days or every day. That is a totally different market. And again, probably in Europe. I've seen the roads in Colombia. There's some place I would not drive a Ferrari in Colombia.
Doctor, sorry to interrupt. There are two students who really want to ask you questions. Do you want to let them by the end, or do you want to have the questions?
Yeah, no, we'll do it after. Oh,
okay.
Oh God, okay. Yeah, okay. I'll kind of leave it there now. So we'll leave that. So I am now open to questions, because I do have a habit of talking too much. Right. So thank you very much. I'll take this.
So thank you. The students that are going to ask questions, please open the camera and open the microphone, please. Thank you. Sorry, Andres Camilo asked me to.
Teacher, excuse me, I don't have the camera in this moment.
Excuse
me. Just the microphone.
Moment I don't have the camera.
Okay, no problem, Andres.
Okay, Dr. Harrison, good morning. My name is Andres Benavides.
Good afternoon here in Spain. Good afternoon here in Spain. It's 6 p.m.
Oh, good afternoon. Excuse me. Here in Colombia is the morning.
Yes, I know.
Okay. I am from University of Antioquia, and I want to ask you about influencers. As you said, influencers are a marketing strategy because they are being hired to endorse products through social medias. But what do you think is the most important factor in an influencer between followers and reputation? Because influencers can have a significant number of followers, but if they are not considered favorably by people, what condition is better for you?
It's definitely not the number of followers. There is a price. The followers usually dictate the price you would pay the influencer. But as you say, the most important is how they are considered. And a lot of companies don't tend to consider that. And you should. You're looking at the market that they are appealing to. And that is the word, that they appeal to, that people like them and respect their opinion. If that is your profile, they're the ones you're after. I mean, a good example, or an extreme example of this, is probably somebody like, and it is extreme, Donald Trump has a lot of followers, but an awful lot of them are there to sort of listen, or when he still had social media before he was taken off, a lot of people were just going on there sort of to say, just to see what is this guy going to say next, and they would not really value necessarily his opinion. And in fact, in some cases, if he's were to endorse something, it would actually be detrimental to a particular brand. So it obviously shows that it's far more important the opinion and how that influencer is held in esteem by their followers. The only difference whereby the number of followers is important is based on the amount of money you would pay that influencer. But you should select very carefully the influence, not just based on the number of followers.
Okay, doctor. Thanks a lot for your appreciation.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Yes,
I just saw
there
somebody
is
typed on
one.
there. Somebody called me Mrs. Harrison.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it was Mr. S. Harrison, perhaps, but not Mrs. Please.
Okay, excuse me, Mr.
Oh, okay. I don't know who it was.
Juan Restrepo asked for the word. Juan, is he connected? Juan. Well, Valentina Durango is raising the hand. Valentina.
Yes, good morning. Oh, good
Morning.
afternoon for you.
Good afternoon here. Good morning in Colombia.
Yes, I excuse myself, I can't turn my camera on right in this moment.
Okay, no
But
problem.
my question is, if in the moment the internet is saturated with all the advertising from other companies, how can I avoid that my purpose of my customers that I segment before is not to is, for example, when I email to someone, how can I avoid that people close my purpose before they read them?
Yeah, it depends on where you get the emails from. I mean, people have a habit of buying email lists, and you shouldn't do that because precisely you don't know the people that you're going to email. In other words, if you've done various types of publicity in the past to get the emails from people, that is where you should be starting. You may have done things like this, a webinar or something similar, and people have written in and you've started to collect the emails of people that are connected with what it is or interested with what it is that you're offering. So it's much better to have 20 or 30 emails of people that you know are interested than have large quantities of those that aren't. Now, I have done this quite recently where I was able to get access to a list of 250,000 potential students. And we emailed, I think, 80,000 and basically got zero response. So it was a complete waste of time. Whereas if we email 10 people that we knew from either referrals, getting their emails from people, we actually got 5 out of 10. So 50% compared to 0%. So it's the quality of the emails. Don't waste time approaching people that you don't know.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. Xiaomi, go ahead.
Okay, teacher. Can you send? Yeah. Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Harrison.
Yeah, good afternoon.
So, you were saying that it is something expensive for companies.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you listen to me?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. The sound was bad.
I will have to turn off my camera for
okay,
talking
no
from
problem.
my cell phone.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, that you were saying that it is expensive for companies to invest in digital marketing. So taking into account that for companies, it is expensive to invest in digital marketing, and that maybe they are taking a risk. Which do you think are the most effective digital marketing channels for appealing consumers, or do you think that it depends on something?
It depends on a lot of things. For example, I would say perhaps for actual consumer items, something along the lines of Groupon, where you're offering particular, in other words, people already know what the product is and what it does. If you're offering that kind of thing, perhaps the best is something along the lines of Groupon. I was looking at Groupon here in Spain has 8 million consumers, where literally, thanks to Groupon, they will send your offer out to 8 million people every day. And they have a very good response rate. And I was also looking at that, doing a similar thing in India, but they didn't actually have the thing I was selling. And they have something similar to Groupon over there. And they have 140 million customers that they send things out to. So that is perhaps the best, because you only get the money in and spend to Groupon as a percentage of what comes in. So if you don't sell anything, you've got zero cost. If you sell a lot, then yes, you have to pay a lot more. But that is perhaps one of the best ones because it's done as a percentage of sales and gets you a vast amount of stuff very quickly. But obviously it depends on what it is you're selling. So consumer products, something along the lines of Groupon, is an excellent way to get out your product out there in the market in a very large quantity in a short period of time. But if you're selling expensive luxury goods, that isn't the way to go. Then you have to be a lot more creative.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Harrison. I agree. Yes, it depends on the products and services that companies are selling.
Yep.
And it depends on the customer. So I agree with
No,
you.
it depends on which customers you're after. You know,
Yes,
it depends on the
we
kind
are
of like the
targeting.
price, because obviously there's a lot more people who have, you know, 5 or 10 euros to buy something that is for the house. But if you're selling high-end jewelry or luxury products in general, then that's not the place to go. Then you've got to be, as I say, a lot more creative and start looking to create a space that those kind of people would go to that have that kind of money, and then start offering them to them. So something along those lines would be a lot more appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other question? No.
No. Okay, I think Laura would probably be. Is she on ready to go?
Yeah. Well, doctor, are you going to keep connected or are you leaving?
Yes, I'll be here for a while.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So let's welcome Laura. Oh yeah, here she is. So.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Welcome.
Desde España, a little bit far away.
Okay.
A little bit later than over there.
Okay, Laura. As I did with Dr. Harrison, he introduced himself, so I am not going to do different with you. So I'm going to open the space you to tell the auditorium who you are and everything. So thank you, and I really appreciate you to be here. Thank you from the university. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is share my screen so that all of you can see, as I have prepared a presentation for you all. So the first thing, I know that Dr. Stephen has already been explaining to you quite a bit about social media. Now I'm going to continue and talk about social media planning. But before, I'm going to introduce myself. So as you can see, my name is Spanish, but my accent is very American. That's because I was born here in Spain. My family, hold on one second. It's going automatically. My family is from Spain, but I was raised in New York City. So my thick New York accent is, you can get the girl out of the ghetto, but you can't get the ghetto out of the girl. So exactly who am I and why am I here with SSBR talking about digital marketing? Well, I am a marketing enthusiast. I got my marketing degree back in 2004, many years ago, when digital marketing didn't even exist. We didn't even have Facebook or YouTube. I think MySpace, if anybody remembers MySpace, wasn't even around by then. At that point, I had studied a bachelor's degree in media studies in the United States, in New York City. And then I came to Barcelona in 2002, and I decided to pursue a degree specialized in marketing, which is what I had always loved, in a business school here in Barcelona. Afterwards, I went into the pharmaceutical industry. I was working as product manager at a multinational pharmaceutical company. And after a while, I definitely got the feeling that I needed change and I needed to do something that I was more passionate about, because in that company, we didn't have much room for creativity. So I decided to open up my own small business. I had my own business for over 12 years dedicated to weddings. I was a wedding planner for people who were coming from other countries and were coming here to Spain. So I definitely can agree with Stephen, what you were saying about having to find more creative solutions than just using email lists to be able to connect with your audience, depending on the product that you sell. Because, for example, for me, one of the biggest challenges that we always had was getting leads. We didn't have clients who would repeat. And so we also didn't have a wide array of clients that were interested in all coming to Barcelona to get married. So it's definitely true that it is necessary to be able to be very creative in terms of marketing. I sold my business 3 years ago already in 2018, late 2018. At that point, I started working in consultancy. I had already done a few things, and I'm marketing and business consultant. So I help small businesses who are also facing challenges with being able to grow their business or being able to take a new direction in their business. I help them grow. And I also am a university and master's degree professor here at SSBR. I've had the pleasure of working since the fall term of 2020. And before that, I had done other collaborations in other international universities. And I also, as you can see, I like to speak. So I've also been asked to be a speaker at different industry conferences related to weddings and then other kinds of events. And today I'm here to talk to you guys about lots of things. And I'll also be sharing experience with you about how to really take the full potential that you have with social media marketing in order to ensure that you can be successful and you can really create a fabulous social media campaign. Because many people think that just because you have an Instagram account, or now that I have a business Facebook page, that's it, all the work is done. And that's not it at all. The work has just begun. Now it's time for you, once you have created those pages and you've chosen the platforms, it's time for you to create a community, to create content that is compelling and that's going to attract the clients that you want for your business. So before I actually start talking about social media planning, I've prepared a few things for us to cover more of a broad spectrum of social media marketing. As you know, social media marketing is the term that is referred to all kinds of marketing actions that a business can do in any social media platform. So this can be done through YouTube, or it can be done through Twitter, etc. As social media, you have the option of either paying to have ads, sponsored ads, for example, which I'm sure you've all seen on different platforms, or you also have the option of having a free business profile and using your own posts and generating your own audience. So exactly what are the top social media platforms? When we talk about the top social media platforms, we really talk about these social media platforms, which actually lots of people think that Facebook is kind of dying down, but not at the least, completely the opposite. We'll take a look at different stats now. We can see from Hootsuite's digital report around the world, which was published in early 2021, you can see that there are 4.2 billion people that are active social media users. Being able to communicate with the people that want to buy our product there in a very effective way is going to help us. And it's going to not only help us be successful, but it's also going to help us if we have a very well thought out and planned social media campaign that's going to make us get a great return on investment. Return on investment means that I put in money and what I get back in terms of revenues. So we can see that versus January of 2020, there has been an added 490 million active social media users just within the last year. Now, how does the social media use vary around the world? Well, we can see that the total number is 4.2 billion, as you've seen. The social media users in percentage are basically more than half of the world's population that is on social media. There has been a growth of 490 million, as I've already told you, and there's 4.15 billion people, so that's 98, almost 100% of people who are accessing social media platforms on their cell phone, on their mobile phone. So it's important that when we create these campaigns, we always think of the device that they're using. So here we can see statistics, very clear statistics. Number one, Facebook with 2.7 million active users. The next is YouTube with 2.2 million. Then we can see that there are also messenger apps, which I'm not going to address here because that's more interactive and personal chats. But we're going to see the next one is Instagram as social media platform with 1.2. That's already less than half of Facebook. And then we continue with TikTok with 689 million. And Twitter is down here with 353 million. So we can see right off the bat that Facebook is one social media platform that we definitely have to be on. So I'm going to review all of the social media platforms now, and then we're going to talk about them overall in terms of planning. So Facebook is a great platform that we can use. Number one, because that's where we can see that most of the social media users are, and we can also see that it has been growing quite a lot. Actually, it's not here on the presentation that I prepared for you, but within the last year, the demographic, the group of people that have grown most are people over the age of 65, and they have grown on Facebook. So it's very important that we are able to understand the platforms that our target group is in, and how we can make sure that we can build a following so that people will continue wanting to buy from us. So Facebook is great because Facebook allows you to be a lot more interactive. For example, with the small business that I used to run, I actually used to create Facebook groups where we would actually group people, and they would become leads or prospects for our business. They were people who, based on specific metrics, were interested in getting married. They were engaged. They were at a specific age range. They were in specific countries with specific professions or occupations. And we would target them based on whether they had expressed an interest in travel and Barcelona and destination wedding. And so we used to create a private closed Facebook group there. And of course, I would on a daily basis, sometimes even more, I would post information that was useful for these leads to decide on whether they wanted to get married in Barcelona or not. And of course, when they were finally able to make the decision, who would they turn to for help? They would end up turning to Crystal Events, which was my old company. So Facebook is a great place because you can interact with people in a very clear and in a very beneficial way. It's not as limited as Twitter, which we'll see now as well, where Twitter is based on a specific number of characters. With Facebook, you can both use your personal account, you can use your Facebook page, you can have groups, and you can upload photos, you can upload videos, you can create specific posts with just text. It helps you, you don't have a very short limit to how long the posts can be. For example, it's much longer than on Instagram. And it's much more interactive than other platforms. The privacy settings that Facebook has created also, in order for people to be able to see what you're doing or not, is also much better than other platforms, even though we know that Facebook has had controversy in the past due to privacy. And it also has this great and unique feature, which are closed groups, marketplaces, etc. Excuse me just 1 minute. My daughter is here with me. So hold on just 1 minute. Somebody's ringing the bell. Just say we're not here, okay? Sorry. Somebody was ringing the bell and my daughter didn't want to open. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So YouTube, as you've seen, is the second most popular channel. And actually, YouTube works really great when it is used as a complement, or when it works linked with other social media platforms. Here you can use, all of you I'm sure have used YouTube. You can not just look at other people's videos, but you can also upload videos yourself. You can add a section with comments, you can add filters, texts, etc. And you can upload and use almost any content without almost any restrictions. What does this mean? One of the things that we have to take into account in YouTube, for example, is using music with copyrights that are intellectual property rights. You have to have granted, you have to have received authorization from specific, to be able to use specific songs. So actually there's music that is royalty free that you can choose for your YouTube videos. And it's great, YouTube is great for us in marketing to be able to show people, number one, that we are experts. We know what we're talking about here. Let me show you behind the scenes. Many people like to see the behind the scenes of things that are happening. For example, you have a great Facebook group, and you show really beautiful, very, very well prepared photos that are really perfect. But you want to show people how you made that wonderful, wonderful post. You can do so on YouTube. Many people move from one platform to the other. Other ways that you can use, YouTube is great for products that are difficult to sell or difficult to explain. I'm sure you've seen, for example, product unveilings like the iPhone 11 unpackaging. These are the kind of things that people really like to see. And of course, you can also use it to create tutorials. You can use it to create anything that you believe, content that you believe will be interesting for your audience. Next is Instagram. Instagram, I'm sure you all are very familiar with it. Instagram is actually, with the millennials, Instagram is the platform of choice. This is their first choice, the first place that they go to when they start researching information about a service or a product. And Instagram is very visual, whereas in Facebook, you can have really long texts, long posts with a lot of text. Instagram doesn't allow you to create so much text, and Instagram does, you do have to post up a photo, a picture, a screenshot, something that is visual. I define Instagram as a visual magazine of your brand, of your company, of what it is that you want to portray. It enables us to be able to share images and videos. Engagement is key. It's one of the things that that Instagram works very hard at with the algorithm, so that the best thing that your audience can do in order for your Instagram feed to always show up on their feed is that they can save your post for another collection, not just follow you, not just comment, but actually save it. That's what tells the Instagram algorithm that the content that you are giving your audience is really valuable to them. And actually, Instagram will only show about 30% of the profiles of the accounts that we follow on Instagram. So it's very important that you do ensure that you are engaged with those accounts that you really like and value. TikTok is the platform of preference for Generation Z. The ones, like you guys that are just starting college now or are still finishing up high school. And I'm sure you guys don't need any explanation about TikTok. You guys probably know more about TikTok than I do, even though I have a TikTok account. TikTok is basically an app that allows us to create very short, very fun and catchy videos. Now, that doesn't mean that we always have to use TikTok to create choreography. I know that's one of the biggest trends on TikTok, but there's actually other kinds of accounts that you can follow on TikTok and that work really well on TikTok. Like, for example, cooking or even makeup tutorials or things that can be interesting to your audience. But the most important aspect of TikTok is that you keep it fun. Even if you are, for example, a pharmacy, I follow a pharmacy here in Spain who opened up a TikTok account during the pandemic when we were first confined a year ago. And they would make these really fun videos about things that we needed to do, like, oh, so how do you wash your hands and wearing the masks and blah, blah, blah. But they did it really fun. And that's what kept people engaged to see what they come up with next. This is what I mean about using TikTok in a way that you can show the audience, your audience, what you want to convey, but making sure that it's more fun. And with a TikTok, you as a user, you can add filters, you can use text, sounds, etc. And there's actually very little text that you can actually write. There's actually hardly a caption. Most TikTok accounts is just to add 1 or 2 or 3 hashtags, but you can put a few keywords overlaid on the video. And Twitter or tweeting is very, very widely used for branding. I'm sure that many of you have heard about how there's something tweeting, there's something trending. And even though Twitter is not one of the platforms that has such a wide reach, it doesn't have as many active users as Facebook, Twitter really is the place where things begin and then become viral and start to go to other places. And this is actually, as you can see here, tweeting is the quickest way to get something noticed. 58% of users actually follow this, follow Twitter to find discounts about brands, and 39% of users actually follow the brands for contests because this is where they are first published. And LinkedIn, of course, I couldn't talk about social media marketing without covering LinkedIn. We know that LinkedIn is a platform that stands on its own because it is the #1 professional networking platform. It's the best B2B platform that we can find. And even for when we are marketing ourselves, I am marketing myself. My name is Laura Perez, and I want to begin working at a university. Well, I'm going to do so through LinkedIn, using this professional networking website. So this website allows you to create a professional profile with a CV. You can look for work. It allows you to upload photos and video. And here you have the option of creating posts, normal posts, like very similar to Facebook. You can also have articles. So it's actually like you have a blog section in LinkedIn, which of course makes you a LinkedIn special learner, or I don't remember the exact name now, but you have a different category. And you can actually even create surveys and polls to send out to your entire network. The important thing to bear in mind here, LinkedIn is only for professional use. We are not going to use LinkedIn either, whether we have a business page or a personal page on LinkedIn. We're not going to use LinkedIn to say, look, I'm having this great coffee today, and I saw my long lost friend Susan, who I haven't seen in 6 years. That's something that should stick to the personal platforms like Facebook or Instagram, for example. Then here in LinkedIn, as a person who is looking for work, or as a person who has a professional profile, you also have the option of getting proper certifications from LinkedIn, where they endorse you and they say, no, LinkedIn certifies that this person actually has this skill. And it's actually interesting because I don't know if any of you have ever tried. I use Excel, Microsoft Excel on a daily basis, and I have never passed the LinkedIn certification from Microsoft Excel. It's very, very challenging. And it also helps you to get endorsements, recommendations from people that are in your professional network. Now, LinkedIn is, for the professional world, I say it's the same as Facebook for the personal, for our personal life. It's much more interactive than other platforms. You also have very heightened privacy settings, and it also has the option of having closed groups, where, for example, here at SSBR, we have a private group for all of our students to be able to network and talk amongst themselves on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a very important social media platform that we cannot overlook when we are creating a marketing campaign for our businesses. Now, we've seen the top social media channels. How can we pick our social media channels? Well, and I've just covered a few. There are others like Twitch, There's another one in Russia. I don't remember, Yandex, or I'm getting confused. There's a lot of different options and platforms available, and there will always be new ones that keep on coming up. What we need to think about is basically to decide. We need to be able to answer two questions. Number one is, where are my customers? If I am marketing to millennials, maybe TikTok is not the place to be, because my millennial audience is not present there. The next question is, where am I most comfortable? Because as a business, you will also see if you are more of an expert on one social media platform than another. For example, I have my TikTok account, but I've never posted anything on TikTok. And for me, I would die of embarrassment if anybody saw me dancing and doing things like that, but that's just me. So it's important that we are able to find and strike a balance between where our customers are and what I, as a business, am most comfortable using. So for people who have, who use social media successfully, how do they use social media? Well, let's take a look. The first thing is that before they begin, they get a following, or they start creating a network from the network that they currently have. For example, if I want to be able to, let's say I want to be able to begin marketing my product in Madrid, then what I will do is I will go to my Facebook account, or I will go to my LinkedIn account, and I will see all of the people that are currently part of my network in Madrid. And I'll say, hey, I'm thinking of expanding to Madrid. Can you introduce me to your network in Madrid? This is something that works really well, and it's free. It only is time. We know time is money, but there's no cost involved. Then others that are in your business can also help introduce you and help you expand your network. So follow your general manager, follow your colleagues, the people that you work with on a daily basis, and ask them to be able to introduce you to others. You actually have, on LinkedIn, you have the function of being able to contact another person, and it will actually say, this is a second connection because it's the second degree. And it will say, you have, for example, Stephen Harrison is in common. You have him in common. And so I can contact that other person whose name is David. And I say, hey, David, I see that you are friends with Stephen. I work with him at SSBR. I'd love to be part of your contact. That's one option. The other option is you can ask people, and there's actually a function that says, ask Stephen to introduce you. And so I can send a message to Stephen and say, hey, Stephen, I see that David from Madrid is your contact here on LinkedIn. Can you please introduce me? And there you also have the function of being able to do that. Why is it important to use our existing networks? Because people will be more prone to open themselves up, or to be open to new opportunities, or new product ventures, or new businesses, when it comes from somebody that they know and trust. Not when it's something like we say in Spanish, a puerta fría, the cold door. I don't know how to translate it, where it's like going to a door and ringing the bell. The chances that you have of somebody opening the door for you are very low. Whereas if it's your brother who is helping you to be able to be introduced to that person, the chances that you have of that person opening up to you are much higher. Next, it's also great for us as marketers to be able to see and be able to develop even a sixth sense. And this is what top marketers do on social media, is they are able to see and start to identify trends in the buying cycle earlier than we were before we had social media marketing. For example, you can use this by doing keyword searches, both I put here Twitter, but you can do it on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram. You can even come up, there are times when I would even come up with hashtags myself. And I would say, okay, well, let's see what comes up with this. And then you can see that how many people are actually interested and posting things and sharing these things based on these hashtags. And so this helps you to identify and be able to, like I said, develop a sixth sense of knowing where the market is headed. And then, of course, social media helps you to connect. At the end of the day, it's social. It's called social media for a reason, because it helps us to connect. People do not want to buy from an organization. People are tired of feeling like a number. They want to feel that they are buying from human beings. There's another person on the other side. And so this is what we as marketers need to be able to understand very well. Even if we are a huge company like Apple, we need to be able to humanize that experience and be able to create a more human connection so that we can build relationships, real relationships with our prospects, with our audience or leads. And then the last thing, well, there's lots of things, but the last thing that I've included here is that when you use social media effectively, whether it is that you're using it as a small business or you're using it as personal branding, for example, being able to position yourself or your brand as an expert in that field and generate a following is what is going to help you most. So how do you do this? Well, basically, first you begin positioning yourself as an expert, but positioning yourself as an expert isn't as easy as saying, hi, my name is Laura and I'm an expert in marketing. It's showing how people have thought of you when they've thought of marketing experts. For example, let's say I wanted to create a following on Instagram. Well, I could start talking about how the many years that I created my own business. Number one, I'm showing that I've actually done this work. Number two, I could talk about all of the times that other key people in the industry have asked me for help or have asked me to speak at industry events. That's another way that, well, there are other people who are turning to Laura for marketing expertise. So perhaps she's not just making it up. And then, of course, you have the option of posting and continuing to share your knowledge so that people can really see and understand that, yes, you actually do understand what you're talking about. You don't just talk about it once and then forget about it. You understand your market, you understand what your customers needs, and then you're talking about it. And this is how you would position yourself as an expert. And of course, since you are a person who is always on the lookout for changes and trends, and you are reading a lot about your specific industry or niche market, for example, you also share. Not only do you create your own content, which I'll talk about in just a minute, not only do you just create your own content, which is going to be very important because, of course, it shows your expertise, but you're also going to show other content of other third parties who are also experts in the field, and that will help to complement your information. And so in this way, you become the go-to person. You become the advisor. You become the person that people think of top of mind that is the expert in that specific field. I was talking about myself, for example, but I could talk about other industries. For example, when we think about electrical vehicles, everybody thinks of the same person, I'm sure. Elon Musk, Tesla. And that doesn't mean that he's the only person in the entire planet who actually designs and manufactures electric vehicles, but he has developed such a great image of himself and positioned himself as an expert in that field that people will, if he does one thing, people will follow. Look, for example, at what happened a few weeks ago, or was it a month ago or something, where Elon Musk talked about Bitcoin and said, I've invested so much money in Bitcoin and now Tesla is going to accept payments in Bitcoin. What's happened? So many other businesses have followed suit. He has positioned himself as an expert in that field. And so people look to him, they admire him, and they actually take his word as an expert. And so people become trusting in what he says. So now you have an idea. So how can we now take all of these techniques and become successful with our social media marketing efforts? Well, at the end of the day, the best combination, the best marketing will actually be a combination of both digital and traditional, because traditional marketing is still very important. So depending on the type of business that we have, the type of product that we're selling, we're still going to need some kind of community involvement or networking or face-to-face marketing. For example, if I am in the industry of selling robotic automated warehouse solutions, and so I work with platforms and companies like Amazon, where I have a contract with them and I can become their #1 provider for equipping their robotics and warehouses across the globe. I'm not just going to be creating online actions and efforts with them. I'm also going to need to have lots of traditional marketing methods that are going to help me work. Like, for example, the 4 Ps, the marketing mix. I don't know if you've done the marketing mix, the product place, but this is a part of strategic marketing, which is a very important part of traditional marketing. Is going to help us in order to develop an effective digital marketing campaign. Then when we think of how to succeed with social media marketing, we have to think of the 4 pillars, which are our customers, our content, community, and call to action. What does this mean? Customers, we have to think about who our client is, where they are, what they want. Then the content is, we have to always be thinking about our client in mind. What is it that they want from us? What kind of content will they find most interesting from me and will help to interest them and make them want to buy my product or my service? Community is basically creating a community around of people that are fans of your product. And this doesn't have to be, for example, something that's, we don't have to think of it of something like, oh, well, I'm UNICEF, and so the community of UNICEF will cross the globe. It doesn't have to be something limited to nonprofit organizations or to service organizations. For example, with Apple has been able to create a community of people, complete marketing, Apple fans, Apple junkies that will actually line up outside the door, and they share information. They share information among themselves about when the new launch is coming out. So this is what I mean about creating community. And call to action is that we always have to think all of our strategies, every single post, every single letter that we put on our social media platforms have to have a purpose. And call to action doesn't necessarily mean that we have to say, buy my product today. Call to action means that we want to have a specific response from our audience, because this is how we're going to be able to measure and evaluate whether or not our efforts are working out. Then we're also going to be able to use the insights from the social media platforms, which are basically all of the information about our audience. It's going to tell us what time of day is best, what are the hours of the day that most of my audience is online, what days of the week. It can even tell you depending on the time zone. It can tell you depending on women, men, etc. The content that we publish, regardless of whether it's a video, a post, etc., we also still have to be conscious that we want to, like I said, we are human beings, and our audience wants to buy products and services from other humans. And so we have to keep up to date with current events. If there's something major happening in the world and we haven't even acknowledged it on social media, it's gonna give our audience either 2 negative ideas. Number 1 is these people don't care about what's happening, or number 2, they live under a rock. They don't keep up with anything. They're just posting it on at the time that they need to post it without knowing what's happening in the world. So it's important that we keep these things up to date. And then the time, effort, and budget. What does this mean? In the marketing department, we will have a budget, a marketing budget, which will come basically given to us from the higher ups, from top level management. And of course, we will also be able to see, depending on the budget that we're giving, how much time we have to be able to devote to each different task, and how much effort is going to be needed for each different task. So of course, all of this has to be done depending on the marketing plan and the marketing resources. If I have, for example, a team of 5 people on the marketing, in the marketing department, but I don't have anybody that's specialized in social media marketing, I may have to either reskill one of the people because my marketing and resources won't cover that job or won't cover that task in the correct way. So I'll either have to reskill one of my people or I'll have to bring on somebody else. Now, will my budget allow me to bring on somebody else for this specific job? Who knows? That's why it's important that we also think about that. And when I talk about time, it's that we cannot be also so ambitious with our social media campaigns that it takes up our 8-hour workday. Because most of the time when you are in a marketing department, you will be doing many other things besides just posting online. You'll be, even if you're just doing social media, you'll be doing anything from looking at insights, engaging with your users, creating new content, etc., etc., etc. So there's only 24 hours in a day, and usually we work 8 of them. We rest for 8 of them, and the other time we're actually sleeping. So it's also important for us to bear that in mind. And then we can think about having how much money we have for our marketing budget that we can spend on Facebook ads, on Instagram ads, or social media marketing in general. Again, even if we choose not to have paid advertising on social media, creating the content that we're going to use for our organic posts are still going to invest quite a bit of time and quite a bit of money. So it's important that we combine all of these elements to ensure that we can be successful with our social media marketing efforts. Which brings me to the digital marketing mix. The digital marketing mix actually takes the 4 Ps and transforms them specifically to the digital world. So instead of client, or excuse me, instead of product, we see content, where content is what I am giving. It's the value that I am adding to my audience, and it's what's making them interested in me, in my small business, or in my product. Conversation takes over communication, or excuse me, promotion. See, I get confused between the 4 Cs, the 4 Ps, and now the 4 Cs of digital marketing mix. So conversation has to do with being engaged, communicating with our target group, with our audience. Community has to do with being able to create a sense of community, like I explained, where you're not just posting and that's it. You're actually interacting with people. It's a two-way conversation, or 3-way, and you are providing lots of valuable information that people are going to be interested in your network. And connections is basically being able to use social media to both find influencers that will be interested in promoting your product, but also building a network of connections. If somebody asks me now, well, Laura, what do you think? Is it better to just use influencers, or would you actually spend and invest more in your own social media platform? And I would say, if we have an unlimited budget, I can spend as much money as I want, then do it all. But if you don't have a lot of money, then I would say invest in your own actions. Perhaps begin with one influencer who can help you to start getting the word out, and have that person during a period of time. But the idea is for everybody to follow you, to become your specific audience, so that you don't have to be paying others for leads, so that you can do it yourself. Which brings me to the core of our presentation, which is social media planning. So when we think about creating our social media strategy, we've decided the platforms that we're using, because we've seen where our customers are, etc. Now it's time for us to think about exactly what it is that we're going to do, to plan ahead. So the first thing is we're going to think of all of the different social media channels and think about what our goals are going to be on each social media channel. Because if your marketing goal is just to generate brand awareness, the kind of campaign that you're going to create and the way that you're going to measure the success is going to be very different than if what you're doing is a promotional campaign where you want people to buy your product. It's going to be very different. So it's important that first we decide for each social media channel that we have what our goals are and decide how we're going to measure success. Step two is we have to be able to listen. The great thing about social media is that, like I said, it's a two-way communication. And people are much more open about talking about things that they like and don't like about your product or your service on these kind of platforms, as opposed to face-to-face or even through email. So it's important that we keep an ear open, that we can be able to communicate in these new ways, and that we are also able to develop correct responses, shall we say, to customers, because we have to be able to handle both the great, fantastic reviews that we will be receiving, but we also have to be able to handle the criticism that we will receive, because not everybody will be happy with what we're selling. So we have to be able to acknowledge both of these kind of comments that we can receive and understand the correct way in which we can handle them. Then we're also going to integrate the social media platforms. Now, this doesn't mean that what I post to Facebook is going to be immediately shared on Instagram, immediately shared on Twitter, and immediately shared on LinkedIn. Each social media platform has a different kind of audience, different rules. As you've seen, each one is quite different in terms of what can and cannot be done, but also different characteristics, and even I would say different personalities. So it's important that we're able to integrate them in the correct way without making the mistake of just copying and pasting content from one channel to another. And then, of course, we will also try to integrate other inbound activities. What is this? Well, if we've had an email campaign that we have created, for example, well, now I want everybody that has opened up my email campaign now to move across to Facebook and join my Facebook group. So I'm going to make sure that in my email campaign, I talk to them about this great group that I have on Facebook. So please join me on the Facebook group. And then, of course, we're going to integrate team members. Since we are giving ourselves a personality, even if I am posting as SSBR, for example, I want to give SSBR a specific personality, and I'm going to try to integrate the different team members that are part of SSBR in order to humanize that account. So, for example, like I don't know if you guys have seen over the past few weeks, there have been videos going up on SSBR about the different professors who are here. So this is what I refer to when I term about integration. And then, of course, it's important that we stay up to date. What does this mean? Check for comments, check for posts. Now, that doesn't mean that, for example, you post up an Instagram post at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, and you've received the first comment at 9:05 on Monday and you have to respond. It's not a chat. You don't have to respond so quickly, but it does mean that you shouldn't keep people waiting for longer than 24 hours at most, unless you specifically mention that you are not available on the weekends, or if your business is, it's logic that you won't be there on the weekends, for example. But if not, during the work week, it's important to try to stay up to date, at least respond and check everything every 24 hours. And then the last question, which I'll actually go into it in more detail, is that you can invest the time that you have in your social media planning in three different ways: by creating content, curating content, and engaging your audience. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. So when we are planning our social media efforts, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to develop and grow 3 different types of networks. First, we're going to use our employee network. And this means that we're going to find a way that we can communicate with our employees in a more effective way. Now, there are many marketers who say that marketing also has to be done to the employees. And this is, for example, seen in many companies that now have the chief happiness officers or chief talent officers. This is because it's getting more and more challenging to retain talent. People who are good at their jobs usually are recruited or headhunted by another company. So it's important for us to also do marketing internally to our employees so that they stay happy, they want to stay within the company, and they continue adding value to our company. The customer network, of course, is the number one network where everybody is going to devote most of their time. And this is where we're going to want our work to really shine through. Now, it's very important that when we think about our customer network, we don't try to rush them through the sales funnel, which I'll talk about in a few slides. If we are too quick and pushy, pressuring people to move along, buy from me today, come on, this tactic doesn't work anymore. Or shall I say, it works with very few people nowadays, and especially on social media. It doesn't work now. Social media is a lot more about being subtle. It's about gaining loyal following, and it's about creating content that adds value to your customers. This is the way that you are going to be able to generate a great following, and you are going to have your customers become very loyal and continue buying from you for years to come. And then product network. Now, why do I specify something different, product network? Well, depending on the product, it may actually need a different kind of platform, because let's say I am a big company like Nestle, the mass market company that sells food and beverage. And I am the Nesquik brand manager. Well, I'm going to have my own social media channels and social media actions for the Nesquik brand, because I won't be able to be promoting through the same channels or with the same actions, because my target group for Nesquik will be very different than, for example, the target group who is selling baby formula. So it's very important that we take that into account. And of course, it's also great, product network is also great when we have a complicated product to sell, or it's a product that is very innovative and that people need to really see and understand very well before they can move on in the funnel and decide to buy the product. And remember that this will also help us a lot, especially with innovative or high-tech products, because it's going to help us in gaining really good and valuable feedback from our customers. If we actively listen and we ask them, what do you think? What challenges do you see with the use of implementing this product in our homes, etc.? They're going to talk to you. So use that valuable information, integrate it into your R&D, and improve your product. And this brings me back to what I was talking about before. So when we are spending time on creating a great Facebook social media platform marketing, it's as easy as investing 15 minutes a day. Now, I would say that it's easier to do it in other ways, which I'll explain. But first, let me talk to you about this. So the very first thing is we have to think about the creation aspect. And this is talking about adding value. We're always going to be adding value to our target audience. So here you can, for example, post up links to your new blog posts. I've just created a new blog post about, let's say, we're Crystal Events again, my old business. So I've just written a new blog post about the best tapas bars in Barcelona in 2021. Well, I'm not just going to leave it there on the website. I'm going to use that blog post and share it on my Facebook private group page, for example. Or you can include other kind of information like product updates or changes to your product features, etc. And actually, when we do this as marketers, we can use lots of different tools. They're called community management tools that can help us a lot in being able to plan ahead and being able to spread the posts out throughout a number of days. I use Hootsuite, but you can use lots of other ones that are available. There are some that are free. There are some that are subscription. This really depends on the volume that you have. Then also curate. What does this mean? We don't just have to create our information ourselves. Like I said, in order for you to become, to be positioned as an expert, it's great to be able to share information from others who are also experts. So use those materials, use that information, and post it up on your social media accounts. What you must never, ever do is try to pass it off as your own. And this happened a lot in the wedding industry, actually, because people would say, oh, I did this, look at my beautiful wedding in Barcelona. And it turned out to be the wedding that I did last year. And they're saying that it's theirs. So it's very important that you always give credit where credit is due. So if you're using LinkedIn, it's as easy as putting their link to that specific article. Or if you're using other platforms, it's as easy as giving them credit, however it may be, the website name or their specific profile name, etc., so that you are giving credit where credit is due. And here you can also use Hootsuite or other community management tools in order to be able to create a calendar of feeds or posts that go out automatically. And then engage. This is where we're going to be spending most daily efforts, and I'll explain what I usually do myself. But most daily efforts will be spent in trying to engage our customers. Because, for example, what I used to do when I had my wedding planning company, because it's such a niche market, and I had to be very creative with my marketing efforts. What I would do would spend every Monday, and that was my back office day. That was a day that I had no meetings, no calls. Actually, if people would look on my website, they would see that the office is closed, because I needed that time to devote entirely to marketing. And so what would I do? I would, for example, plan for the following 2 weeks, sometimes even a month. I would plan all of the different digital actions that I would do. It wasn't just related to social media. It was also about blogs. So I would, for example, say, okay, today I'm going to write 5 blog articles. And so I have the first one, which will be sent out. It will be published tomorrow, Tuesday. And I'm going to post about it on Instagram on Wednesday. But on Wednesday of the following week, I'm going to remind people that they have this post from last week, which is about blah, blah, blah. Then what I would do would be also to create the calendar of all of the other information that I was going to be posting up. So if I had a video that I would be sharing, I would have it already on my community management interface. So the only thing that I would have to do would be to program it. And I could actually see, it actually gives you the option. And the one platform that I used most is Instagram, because that's where all of the wedding industry is and where the brides go, because of course it's very visual industry and people want to see what you've done. It actually even gives you the option of being able to lay out your posts to see how they visually look. So you could see the top 9 posts, which are the ones that will appear on your feed when you go on the profile page, and it would actually show me. So I could actually even see how they would be working among each other and say, okay, well, no, this one shouldn't be in the center. I'm going to put this one here because this one is pink and that one is pink and it looks too similar. So you can even go to that level of detail in order to be able to plan ahead. What do I recommend that you never, ever, 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 ever do? post something up on a whim. Unless you're posting something to stories, for example, something that is behind the scenes and that you want people to see right now, don't just say, okay, well, tomorrow I'll think about what I'm posting up tomorrow. Every single action that you do on social media has to have a strategy behind it. And that strategy is created by being able to sit, being able to concentrate on what it is you want to obtain from those actions that you have at this moment in time, and then being able to create posts that will be able to communicate that to your audience. So when we create content, we remember that it needs to be able to speak to and influence your audience. So not just for our Instagram post or our Facebook posts, but for everything from our websites, from our website information, our blog posts, videos that we're going to be using on YouTube, etc. All the content that is designed correctly and that is successful must answer these 3 questions. So first is, what do I want people to see, hear, and or learn? Thinking about what is of value to them. What do I want people to think? How can I shape their impression or their idea of my product or my service in their mind? And then what do I want people to do? Okay, so once they've received this information that is of value to them, and they have decided, they've considered, or they've created an impression of me in their mind, what do I want them to do? And when we actually see this, as you can see, it's actually how they progress through the sales funnel, which we'll take a look at in a minute. So we go from the awareness stage of our leads to consideration stage. They've created an impression of me. They've learned more about my company, and now they've decided, they've created an opinion. And what response do I want? What is going to be my call to action? And again, like I said before, if you a call to action doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say, buy my product today. It doesn't have to be that. A call to action can be very subtle. It can be as subtle as ending a post with a question that you want people to answer. And of course, not all people are going to answer. Getting a percentage of responses is normal. However, getting no responses is not normal. So if you see that your audience is not engaging, not even liking your content, then there's something happening. Then it's time for you to go back to square one and see what's happening there, because there's something that is not connecting with them in the correct way. And actually, in Gary Vaynerchuk's, sorry, I'm so bad with these names. In his latest book, The Thank You Economy, there's a section called Sawdust at the very end of the book, in which he talks about the 7 biggest mistakes that companies make with social media. So first, it's using tactics instead of strategy. What does this mean? Like I said, you cannot just post something online without it having a purpose. It all has to follow a specific strategy. Then you cannot use social media just to put out fires. What does this mean? You can't only use social media when something's happening, when there's something going wrong with your company, or you have to talk about something that's important in your company. You have to be there. It has to be something more consistent. You can't use it to brag. You can't use it to say, look how stupendous and marvelous I am, and buy from me. It's not meant to be used as a press release either. A press release is usually follows a specific format, and it is usually sent out to the press, to the media. That's why it's called press release. It's not called social media release. So make sure that when you talk about new product features or new product information, you're not doing so in the same way on social media than you would on a press release. And of course, don't use your social media platforms just to retweet or repost others' content. You have to also be able to create your own original content. And of course, we're not going to use it just to get people to want to buy our product. And of course, the last but very frustrating mistake is that people or companies will expect people to immediately act, immediately shop. That's not how social media works at all. Social media is much more about a mid to long-term action. So how can we gain influence and authority in online communities? We can use it to build trust and credibility, and use it in order for us to position ourselves as experts. So we're going to be able to participate as a peer. What does this mean? I'm not going to be bragging like we just saw in the last post, and I'm not going to be talking about how wonderful I am. I'm going to be showing people how I am an expert in this field by talking about what I know, but not in a condescending way. Then, of course, I'm going to answer all of the questions that my audience has, whether it's a question that to me can seem very basic or obvious, or whether it's a question that is very complicated to answer. I'm going to strive to answer every question that my audience asks me, and I'm going to answer new questions. I'm going to ask, new questions as well. And of course, I'm also going to ensure that I make connections, but I'm also going to act as the person who introduces. Because when somebody talks about, for example, you have an influencer on Instagram, let's say, who talks about we'll say an online e-shop. And they talk about that for free. And they say, well, this is not a sponsored ad, but you have to know that this is the best place where I can get, nail polish. People are going to value that, because it's about creating that social connection and making people feel like they're your friends. That's really what it is. Social media is about acting like you are friends and treating people like they are your friends. And to finish off this section, it's important, of course, that we talk about viral marketing. Now, viral marketing, clear in the textbook definition, is the kind of marketing actions that through shares or word of mouth reach a very large amount of people in a very quick time. But there is no specific number, because it can depend on the industry and targeted group. So for example, does a video that have 100,000 views, does that make it viral? If that has happened over 6 months, would that make it more or less viral? And what about a video that has 25,000 views? Does that make it viral? It's a quarter of this first one. But if I say that those views have been in 6 hours, then we could say that that is viral. So of course, it doesn't have a specific number associated to it. It's really about reaching a very large amount of people in a very, very short amount of time. And of course, we cannot confuse viral marketing with paid marketing, because there are marketing efforts that are supported by emails, ads, campaigns, etc. There are even social media platforms where you even have the option of buying followers, buying likes, etc. We would not consider this to be viral. Viral is something that happens spontaneously. So, for example, it's a 1 in a million chance. It can come from an obscure feed. It's somebody that may not be well known, but it rapidly gains momentum. And within a few days, it's all over the planet through other social media platforms. So for example, I'll leave this for you guys to look at. I'll put it on the chat at the end of our webinar. But basically, I don't know if any of you have heard of this case. This is a woman in the United States who put Gorilla Glue on her hair because she had run out of gel or something like that. And so she decided to put Gorilla Glue, which is a very, very, very hard glue. It's a very dense glue that's used. It's like super glue. And so when she went to wash her hair, it wouldn't come out. And she actually posted up a video, and we can see it here. I don't have it. I'm going to show you just a minute. Age restricted. Here it is. Here it is. She posted up. It's an obscure account. I'm the old lady, and she talked about how horrible, how it's been a month, and she can't change. So I'm not going to play it all for you, but basically, as you can see, it's this random lady, and she's talking about how She's in so much pain because she's had this hairstyle for about a month. She's tried to wash it out. She's used a million things. She can't take it out. Well, this went viral within hours. Everybody had heard about it, even if we weren't in the United States, because this woman was in the United States. And it got so viral to the point that Gorilla Glue, the actual manufacturer, talked about her and said, "We are sorry to learn about your experience. We do not recommend using our products in hair." And she actually was able to get the hair, the Gorilla Glue removed by a surgeon who saw her. He had seen this video and felt so bad for her that he generously accepted to remove it from her hair at no charge. Now you guys can actually click on this link or click on these two links and find out more about this poor woman. So when we think about viral marketing, there is one thing that we have to think about. Is the first thing is, does this exposure benefit your business? Because maybe depending on the industry that I'm in, it doesn't matter if I go viral. For example, with Crystal Events, with my wedding planning company, even if I had a video go viral, which I didn't, it wouldn't have helped my business grow either. A lot of people would have now learned that there's a wedding planner in Barcelona called Crystal Events who does weddings of destination couples. But how many of the people who are actually looking at that viral video would actually be, number one, thinking about getting married, and number two, thinking about getting married in Barcelona? It would be a tiny, tiny, tiny little fraction. So it's not something that was important for my business. But then, of course, there may be products, or there may be industries where it can be beneficial. Like, for example, maybe certain mass market products could be good, or certain tech products or medical products, who knows? Legal services, probably not. Travel services, depending. So it's important that we think about this if we consider or are thinking about creating a viral marketing campaign. And so when we create a viral marketing campaign, we will be using lots of the same techniques that we've seen already, but just trying to harness a little bit more. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to ensure that we are using the correct social media channels and we are targeting the audience that we want. Then, of course, we're going to create the videos that we think are going to be compelling and interesting enough for people to want to reshare time and time and time again. And then one thing that always works great is to be able to offer something for free. When people see that there's something for free, they usually are more open to it, even though that doesn't always work in all industries. Then creating an emotional response, something that's very contradictory. It's either I love it, love it, love it, love it, or I absolutely hate it, or I'm acting like a complete idiot, or I'm a genius, or you're going to make people super happy, or you're going to make people crazy angry. It's looking for very contradictory, extreme emotional responses for them to be able to reshare. So you can actually look at this video yourselves. I don't have time to go through it all. And then you can be unpredictable. Make sure that you enable your video to be shared, of course, embed and downloaded. And don't talk about your product. Even if you're selling something specific, don't talk about it on the viral video. And then use influencers. You can look at this video of the Yes Theory gang who challenged Will Smith. And then make sure that you create a series of viral messages to follow up to your viral campaign. Now, why is it so hard to go viral? Well, there's so many items. There's 5 billion items of content per day on Facebook, for example. Look at all these massive amounts of tweets and LinkedIn posts that are going up, and only less than 1% of content goes viral. Only one tweet in a million goes viral. So most people that even click on an article won't even read it. So what's the reality? Most viewed content will come from famous people, celebrities, politicians, other kinds of people that are already in the eye of the media. The best strategy, if we do want to, even though we know that it's a challenge, if we still want to try to come up with a viral marketing campaign, is try, first of all, to be brief. We're not going to create a 20-minute video because that's never going to go viral. Make sure that your video is newsworthy. You're bringing something new to the table. It's something fresh. Try to be helpful as well. Try to be able to solve your target audience's need. Also, try to avoid Facebook. Why? Because more journalists are on Twitter, and if your post is viewed on Twitter by journalists, then you have more of the chances that they will actually pick up your story and start sharing it or even using it on their media stream. And then, of course, if we are trying to handle a crisis, make sure that you are live, you are there and staying engaged, and in real time, you are able to respond. But the best strategy is always, like I said before, to build a following over time, so that when you do want to use something viral, you already have that 1 million users who are going to see it as soon as you post it. I don't know, Luis, how am I doing on time? I know I like to talk. It's 7:20.
Honestly speaking, some of them, they do have another class. So most of them, if we don't go like quickly to the end, they're going to disconnect. So it's up to you, but I think that, well, the sooner the better in a way. Yeah, you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let me try to finish in 5 minutes. That way we still have some time for question and answers.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the last part, which is social media marketing and sales. Most platforms find that social media advertisements, when we're actually using paid advertisings, will affect the middle of the sales funnel. So most people, this is the sales funnel, and I'll actually just skip to here. This is the sales funnel. So when most people start working through the sales funnel, like we talked about it in marketing, it's based on the funnel analogy, because you have a lot of people coming in at the top of the funnel where there's an awareness stage. They first learn about your product, and the more, as they move through the funnel, more and more people will opt out. They won't convert to a sale, which is here, the action stage. For social media itself, YouTube is the most effective at introducing new products and driving sales, followed by Facebook. And organic versus paid, marketers who are using social media advertising actually have 25% more conversions than if we are just using organic posts. So here you can take a look at this. I'll add this to the chat in PDF so everybody can look at it later. And just to finish off, I'm going to talk about do's and don'ts. So make sure that we first follow the 80-20 rule. And what does this mean? That we're not going to create content that is going to be boring and that is always going to be about the same thing. It has to be a mixture of things that are interesting and fun for people to see, but also have a pleasure side to it. So basically the rule is 80% of your posts should be social, even though they're still, of course, going to relate to what it is that you are an expert about. And 20% of the posts should be about your specific products or services. And we're going to try to not constantly sell. This old school, or shall we say, the archaic style of selling of buy from me, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me, no longer works. We're going to try, like I said before, to respond to any comments or questions within an hour, no more than 24 hours. And even if it's just to say, thanks, I'll be back with an answer very shortly. It's important that we ensure that people see that there's somebody on the other side and that they acknowledge that we know that we have to respond to you. And of course, we cannot ignore our audience. We just can't post something up and then there's comments, and nobody ever writes a thing. Celebrities can get away with that. We can't. Then make sure for, of course, for Twitter, this doesn't count, but for example, in Facebook, the most effective posts are the ones that are under 80 characters. They receive 66% more engagement. Why? Because it's short, it's concise and to the point. I don't even have to press see more. I already see what you want to say. and try to not write a lengthy post. We can use images. Images are worth 1,000 words, they say. So use images, use videos, use whatever it is that you can in a visual way so that you don't have to write a lot of texts. And then in terms of Facebook, do as much as you can to be able to create an organic following. Like I said, on Facebook, you can buy likes. On Instagram, you can buy likes. On Twitter, I'm not so sure. But it's possible to even buy followers. So we have to stay away from that, because having empty likes doesn't make your company more successful. It doesn't make people want to buy your product. You actually want real people to buy your product, not fake accounts. So make sure that it's clear to you how you can make people be interested in what you are posting, so that they decide to follow you and you can grow every day. And then use questions, use open-ended questions, use surveys, use polls, and post things that are enticing, that are interesting, that draw people in. Putting up a photo, for example, about a centerpiece in weddings, white centerpiece bouquet, and saying, I love white centerpiece bouquets, heart, heart, doesn't really say much. But if I say, white centerpiece bouquets are as pure as the bride's. What is it that you love most about white centerpiece bouquets? This will get people more interested in reading and then wanting to engage with us. And of course, make sure that we stay away from fake comments, fake accounts, as I already explained before. How can we see fake comments? Well, when there are comments that are not relevant to anything that you've posted. If I've posted a post about white centerpiece bouquets, and suddenly somebody writes, hey, I love your profile. Can you send me more about your camera product? What does this have to do? These are usually fake. And then try to post no more than 1 to 4 times a week, 1 to 2 times a day. That's because you end up bombarding too much. So even though 82% of people believe that, for example, Facebook is a great place to interact with the brands, 40% of people, 47% of people, almost half of those people don't like brands that are bombarding them with so much stuff that they are the only ones that appear on their newsfeed. So we have to find and strike a balance. So thank you. I hope I wasn't too brief on the last slides. And sorry, I know I like to talk a lot, but it's something that I'm passionate about, as you can see. So I don't know how to stop myself. So any questions? Anything I can help with?
Yes, I think, well, is there any question for Professor Perez? Questions?
Yes, teacher.
Okay, okay, open the micro, please, and go ahead.
Okay, hello, Laura. How are you?
Good, how are you? Thank you.
Okay, my question is, how important is it to analyze the economic development of a country when applying this strategy? Science aspects such as communication, technology, innovation, purchasing power, etc. Depend on this, yes, and they are important factor in digital marketing.
The economic factors is something that we would actually be studying in the strategic part of marketing, because before we can decide what country we want to market to, we have to understand the different characteristics of each country. Maybe when you are creating the marketing strategy for your business or for your product, you see that there is one country that is in recession, for example, or that your product is not going to be, is a luxury item that people will not be able to afford, then maybe at that point you will decide to go somewhere else. Usually when we are thinking about digital marketing actions, it's once you have already analyzed all of the other aspects that may stop you from being successful or may guarantee you being successful. So this would actually be done before you create any digital marketing actions.
Okay, Laura, thank you.
You're welcome.
Juan David, go ahead.
Okay, good morning, Mrs. Laura. Nice to meet you. I am Juan David Duque, a student of Business Administration at the University of Antioquia. I had a question regarding how to ensure that your marketing tactics do not saturate your target audience, and how to prevent them from getting tired of saying it. Finally, how to know which is the ideal point.
So sorry, let me see if I understood your question. You want to know how you can identify if your target audience is getting tired of your content?
Yes.
Of your posts? Okay. Well, the best way to tell is, first of all, making sure that you're checking the insights. So all of the analytics that you will receive from the different social media platforms will tell you, because if you've posted up, for example, on Instagram, you will receive the insights, and that's a part of your business profile. And you see that you are targeting, for example, clients in Miami, and you go into the analytics and you see, okay, great, you have lots of likes and you have lots of people sharing, but you go to analytics and you see that you have no person from Miami that is taking any action, not pressing like, not saving it to a collection, etc., then that's going to tell you that something is happening. So it's important that at the end of the day, it's like a trial and error. There will be times where you will have to try and make small minor changes and see how your audience reacts. If you see that everything is working fine and people in Miami are already engaging with you, then fantastic. The formula that you've chosen works perfectly well. But if you see that the audience that you want is not interacting with you the way that you want, then you have to make small minor changes until you finally see that you are getting the response that you want.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's very interesting.
Thank you.
Lisbeth, I don't know if you have another question, but you have still your hand, you raised the hand already in the first moment. Lisbeth Gomez.
Hello, everyone.
Okay.
I don't have a camera in this moment, entonces, so sorry. Okay, I am aware that advertisement help to easily sell products and allow you to capture new customers. But for example, on YouTube, such an influential platform, the advertisements are constant and long lasting, and that becomes a bit boring for consumers. So Laura, do you think that digital platforms should have an advertisement limit? And do you think so many advertisements are a disadvantage for platforms?
Well, actually, thank you, Lisbeth, because that's a really interesting question. And just before I forget, I just posted up onto the chat. You have the PDF of the presentation that I just gave, so all of you can download it and also take a look at the videos that I linked and stuff. Getting back to your question, Lisbeth, it's actually very delicate, because nowadays with privacy issues coming up and being able to block ads, marketers are actually going to be spending more money on paid advertising in order to reach the same amount of people that they were reaching, for example, 2 years ago with paid advertising. Why? Because now we have the option, many devices. We saw that most people are looking at social media platforms on our cell phones. You have the option of blocking ads. And so this is actually going to be quite a challenge for marketers who want to use paid advertising. But then in regards to the other aspect of your question, I may be using YouTube and I may be having YouTube for example, because I want to show people how wonderful, I am a wonderful wedding planner, and I was interviewed by, I don't know, Spanish TV, and I posted up on my YouTube channel so people can see. And every minute, there's an advertisement for Coca-Cola, for example. That can also be a big challenge because it actually stops you from, it actually stops the user from viewing the video to the very end. Now, I'm not an expert on YouTube, so I may be wrong, but I believe that there's an option that you can actually have a YouTube premium channel, if I'm not wrong, where you don't have any adverts, but it's you're paying an extra fee. You're not using the free YouTube channel option. You pay a price, just like, for example, when you have when you're using songs without rights, without having the intellectual property rights, they may decide to veto you, or they may decide to post up more ads. I believe now there's the option of paying to have the YouTube premium, and that way you don't have to worry about your videos with lots of advertisements in between.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Any other question? No. So if there is no more question, okay. So Dr. Harrison and Professor Perez, thank you very much for sharing all your knowledge with Medellin. We're in Medellin, Colombia. So thank you. I know it's been, well, kind of hard with some connections or connectivity here in Medellin with some students. They were not having good, but anyway, we try our best, and thank you for sharing all that experience, all that topics that you are expert. So from all my students that they left before, but they couldn't continue because of connectivity problems. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you.
It was a pleasure.
So have a nice day there. Well, night. Here
Yeah, now it's time for dinner. Pajamas
okay.
and dinner.
Okay, bye.
So thank you.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you very much. Okay.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I thought you were in New York.
I was in here, yeah. I am in this picture, right? So this is like, the place. You know the place very well, right? Don't you?
Yeah. Flatiron Building in the 42nd Street. Yep.
Exactly.
Down Fifth Avenue, sorry. Down Fifth Avenue.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Bye.
Doctor, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Harrison. Thanks a lot, Dr. Laura. Amigó, and it was a big pleasure, okay?
Thank you. Take
Arthur, for the
care.
invitation.
Okay. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.